Hello, everyone, and welcome to Exploring Cinema. I'm Nate.
And I'm Dylan.
And I'm Adam.
Today, we're talking about Synecdoche, New York. It's a Charlie Kafman movie, so you know it's weird. I asked Dylan and Adam if they were ready right before we started recording the episode, and what was it you guys said?
I think so.
A dubious I think so.
Maybe, I guess.
Maybe. Possibly,
Yeah.
but
as ready as I'm ever gonna be.
Yeah.
I think that's accurate.
Good a fair chance it fails. So
Dylan's got a runaway mic over there.
I know, I see that.
So if this is your first time joining us for Exploring Cinema, it very well might be. This is only the third movie we've talked about. We do have another channel called Speak Film and Enter where we like to review new movies and do some occasional top 5 lists as well. So we created this second channel called Exploring Cinema specifically to talk about older movies that we're interested in watching and not feel like we're tied to release dates and having to get to the theater at a certain time, make sure everybody can get there and so forth. So with Synecdoche, New York, it was leaving the Criterion channel at the end of July, and it had been on our watch list for a really long time. Felt like finally the time to make us watch Charlie Kafman's directorial debut. So, Adam, would you like to tell the people what it's about?
I would indeed. Synecdoche, New York from 2008. A theater director struggles with his work and the women in his life as he attempts to create a life-size replica of New York inside a warehouse as part of his new play.
Yeah, and that is all accurate, but it's also kind of like there's really no synopsis you can get that's going to actually give you a feel for what this movie is like.
Yeah.
I think you need to have seen something else that Charlie Kafman has written or directed because he does have his own style. Been a screenwriter for a much longer time than he was a director. So getting into kind of the introduction of the movie, the overview of it, whatever you want to call it. Like I said, directed by Charlie Kafman. This was his directorial debut. He was already a big name before this. This movie came out in, I think I have the year here. I want to say 2008. Yep, 2008. He was a big name before this because he had written a bunch of great sort of thought-provoking, mind-bendy kind of movies with Being John Malkovich and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and Adaptation as well. So big success as a screenwriter, and he sort of parlayed that into finally directing his own movie, which he gives us with Synecdoche, New York, which is even more, it's possibly the most Charlie Kafman movie. And
I think it has to be.
I've seen Anomalisa, and I'm thinking of Ending Things. The only one I really haven't seen of his that are big is Being John Malkovich. And I just think with the fact that he's finally directing it and he doesn't have someone like Spike Jonze to kind of maybe give it a little bit more like a plot and a narrative flow where we're just kind of in this guy's head basically for the entire movie. It's a really interesting movie, and we all watched it together, which I think helped because watching this alone could be a rough night. I think if you watch this by yourself, having somebody with you to go through this strange odyssey into just lots of thoughts about death, really.
Lots of thoughts about death and how we're all gonna die, and lots of themes of identity and
isolation,
and I mean, he tackles some very, very, very heavy, deep topics in this movie, and I gotta commend him for attempting. I mean, it's very ambitious what he's trying to do here, like especially towards the end when we've got actors playing actors, and it's like, and people are like, all right, well, I'll be Ellen now, and like, okay, well, you be Hazel, and it's like, oh my gosh, and I imagine like writing the screenplay when the screenplay was finally done. I mean, that thing is a work of art. I have to commend him for that, just because like the concept and the execution.
Yeah, he really, really went for it. And just even following the dialogue after a while, when it starts to get like more and more meta and you got more and more people like playing each other.
Yeah.
And they're like, and he's like talking to Hazel and like this isn't something that Hazel would do. And
Yeah.
she's like, yeah. And then she talks to like the other Hazel, and there's just a lot of that. But I do want to get through kind of the sort of big picture budget box office stuff, and then we can dive into opening statements. This had a $20 million budget, and it made $4.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw that the opening weekend was like $172,000. It's like, oof.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because those other three movies I listed were all successful in their own way. And hearing that, like, okay, another Charlie Kaufman movie, and he directed this one, but there must have just been a level of like pre-buzz and like early reviews of people just going like, what on earth?
Yeah.
And maybe I would guess the trailers too probably had a good chance of turning people off. So yeah, 69% on Rotten Tomatoes, 7.5 on IMDb, which was higher than I thought it was going to be, honestly. A 4.2 on Letterboxd, which does not surprise me. This is very much like a cinephile kind of movie. Roger Ebert named it the best movie of the 2000s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it got 4 Sight and Sound votes. So 4 people who voted thought this was one of the 10 best movies ever made.
Okay.
Number 7 on the Guardian's list of top 100 movies of the century. And that list came out in 2019. So that's a 20-year stretch.
Okay.
And all it got for awards, no Oscar nominations that I could find. It won the Independent Spirit Award for Best First Feature for Charlie Kaufman.
Okay.
So, I mean, this does seem like the kind of movie where if you love it, it's going to be like one of your favorite movies ever. If you really feel like you connect with this because of the themes it tackles and how much it looks at something like loneliness, where if you feel really seen from this movie, it goes all the way. Yeah. So if you like this, you're going to latch onto it a lot. With that said, I think we can dive into opening statements.
Yep.
Adam, would you like to go first?
Not really, but I will. It's so meta, it's hard to follow. But if you can get the gist, you're going to enjoy the main storyline. And I guess main is maybe not the right word, but yeah, more of a ramble than anything. It's kind of like this whole movie. It's just a weird conglomeration of thoughts that just intersect. They don't connect necessarily all the time.
Yeah, I think that I felt that as the movie was going on. I did watch this a second time, which I was happy about because I did notice more things. I wouldn't say my opinion of the movie or my enjoyment of the movie didn't really go up on a second viewing. I didn't have that like, oh, it all makes sense, like a Wes Anderson movie. Now I love it. It was just kind of like, okay, it all makes sense. My appreciation for it probably went up, and like my respect for how everything does kind of weave together and sort of does. You got to dig a little bit for it, but kind of does connect at the end. But there is just a lot of kind of without much of like a plot like thread to follow and a through line. It can feel exhausting after a while, I think. So, I mean, this was an interesting movie where I think all of us probably thought like opening statement, like, God, what am I going to say about
That's exactly what I mean. Like,
because this is almost just like a group session to just work through what we thought of it, because it is such a strange movie to talk about. And it's going to start a lot of conversations in a way, but at the same time, there's like no one place to start.
Well, and when you brought up a little earlier that like we will all watch this together, I think like you should watch this with somebody else, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 people. But then you probably should go back and watch it by yourself to like solidify all of that, like you did. I haven't done that yet, and it's going to be a bit before I do. But
I feel like it's just so dense.
Yeah,
it's like you need to watch it a second time if you're really going to claim to, speak on what it means and this and that. Like the first time, there's just so much going on that you need time to think about it, and then I think you really need to watch it a second time. I've only seen it once. I guess my opening statement is that Synecdoche, New York is an incredibly well put together, detailed, philosophical film about existential dread that I did not find very entertaining and will probably never watch again.
Okay, then.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Because I'll be honest. So watching it kind of gave me a headache towards the end. Like last 15 minutes, I kind of had a headache. I'm just not gonna lie. There was just there's so much. And then I've been thinking about the movie a lot. And then the last 2 days, I've tried to look up kind of reviews, analysis. I watched like a few explainer videos on YouTube. And even watching those explainer videos gave me a headache on the way home from work. Because it
just doesn't feel worth it.
Yeah, it's like a 5-part series that this guy did, and each one's like 30 minutes long, and he only gets through like 12 minutes of screen time in those 30 minutes because everything is so dense. Like the very beginning, the stuff that's going on with time is crazy. I don't know if you picked up on that the second time, Nate, more than because I kind of picked up on it the first time, like about after the first 20-30 minutes you start to really realize like, okay, time is going really really fast and he's not really aware of it, but it actually starts from like the very beginning.
Like, there's a moment in he mentions to a doctor like, thanks for getting me in right away. And if you look at like the calendars in the doctor's offices, they're like 3 months apart.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is like funny and sad, which is kind of like how this entire movie goes.
Because it opens and like you can hear the radio and the radio guy's like, it's October 17th or it's September 17th and blah blah blah, Synecdoche, New York. And then like by the time he goes out to get the paper and he sits down and opens the paper up, it's like 7 days later. Like see,
that I didn't even pick up on.
It starts that early. From that whole kitchen scene, like weeks go by in that kitchen scene, and that's why the milk is always expired.
Oh,
so it's not the same milk. Okay, there we go. We're getting there.
Yep. So that's kind of like even just little detailed things like that. So I guess my opening statement would be very impressive. It's almost like a work of art or like a symphony. Like I respect it, but I just don't know if I'm ever gonna. I don't know if I'm really like. I don't know. I just didn't find it very entertaining. And you mentioned that we watched it as a group, and we also had our buddy Steve there, and it was nice that we experienced it as a group. But it also felt like I don't know. It was like a Saturday night. We kind of made a whole big plan about it. And it kind of felt like we were like going downtown to see a show. We were like, who's the band? And like, I don't know, we're just going to take a risk. And we get there at First Avenue and it's like a symphony orchestra.
or like not knowing who you're going to see and then like walking into a Julian Baker concert.
Yeah.
Be like, oh,
you're like,
oh, okay. This is sad and different and it's good, but I was not ready for that. Like,
which in a way, like I think I said this during the movie. Like, this feels like something I need to watch alone,
right?
Like, it feels like it's just like piercing into your soul, and you're with people, and you're just kind of like, I never think that.
Yeah, right. And watching him go through these kind of painful moments, like you can relate to them, but watching it as a group and just because it moves so fast, it becomes like a whole nother kind of experience almost. Like
hey, you guys don't think about death, do you?
I
love you all, but we're gonna die.
I know. The existential dread just filled the room slowly.
Kind of really brought the mood down. So my opening statement is that I don't think I could ever hang out with Charlie Kafman and be sober at the same time. It like his movies, you almost need to be a little high or like a little buzzed or something to just kind of open yourself up to being like receptive of these crazy borderline like horrible things that he just really wants to talk about. Like if you ran into him at a party and he was like a little drunk and talking about this stuff and you were not on his level, you just be like, yep, gotta go to the bathroom, guy. And
you'd be like, I hate that guy. Like, I'm leaving.
There's a sad guy in the corner with 30 people around him who are like fascinated by what he's talking about. Because I'm not one of them.
So I don't know. That was kind of my thought. Is just like I need to be in the right headspace. Basically, is what I'm getting at for Charlie Kafman. And we've talked about how it is nice to watch this with people, just to not be alone while you're watching this movie about loneliness. But at the same time, it does feel a little more like I should be alone when I'm watching something this personal.
That's kind of what
it's a weird mix. All right. So what was that?
No, continue.
I was just going to jump to defining moments. I had a really hard time with this one because of the way the movie is set up, where it's like there aren't that many singular moments to me that stand out. I mean, I did think about kind of the one time when he like really screams at the cast, and then you find out that they've been rehearsing for 17 years.
Yeah.
Which is funny for
Mhm.
sure, but kind of like that moment sticks out to me a little bit. Anything kind of later in the movie when like after Diane Wiest shows up and it starts to get like really different when she's playing him, he's playing a woman.
Yeah.
And it's just so strange. But this is, for me at least, a movie where it's hard to just kind of pin down one or two or three moments that grab or that kind of define what I think about the movie, because it's about everything. It's about the whole.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe the end.
Yeah, I would say maybe the end. Some moments that come to mind aren't really significant. Like you said, they're moments that I'll remember, but they don't really define the movie. I would say like when Hazel, I think it's Hazel, is house shopping and she goes in the burning house and the house is on fire.
Yeah.
Like that was so well
Actually,
done.
no, that's a good one.
Genius. But like, does that really like? But if you told someone that wouldn't tell them anything about what really like the movie is about. I mean, that's all about Philip Seymour Hoffman, and my defining moment is one where he's not even in it. It's just a funny thing. That I would say. Yeah, it's like you said, it's a lot of little. This whole movie is a lot of like little moments and kind of small moments of heartbreak that just like build upon each other. And like I'd say maybe towards the end when he realizes that Hazel has like a family now and he's like outside her house in his car and he's kind of like she's like I don't need you anymore, I've got them, and like I'm doing good, and he's like I wish you weren't doing good, because then like I wish you needed me for something. And it's like that was very poignant. Like there's a lot of little moments like that. It's hard to pick just one. It's more like the feeling that you get over time. And by the end, like what you feel for his character, how you relate to it.
The closest one I could come up with or think of was when Sammy kills himself, because that's the physical death of Philip Seymour Hoffman's character Caden, and then of the character, not actually him. And that's kind of
getting into the weird way to. Yeah,
that's wrapped up into a lot of those different like levels of things that are going on, and I think that encapsulates a lot of the movie. And then like there is a finality to it, and that's kind of when he snaps out of his, I guess we'll call it like a stupor of being like, oh, like everyone is their own person and they do have their own lives, and I can't do this, but also everyone deserves their own time, but we are doing this about everybody, but it's about me. It's a very like
it's about me, but it's also about how we're all equally experiencing the
same thing at the same time.
Is that the first time he says, I know how to do the play now?
I don't know if it's
remember
the first time, but he probably does say it right after that.
Yeah. So I like the point about the first time he realizes that it's not about him, because I do think narcissism is a very strong theme in this movie.
Oh yeah.
I guess I'll save that for observations and musings, because I have a few there.
Okay.
So questions now. I guess I'll start. Who would you guys want to play you in a play about your life?
God, you kind of beat me to it. My question is very similar. I guess I'd go with the baby goose, Gosling. He's coming off of Barbie. He'd make me look real good.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Or Daniel Craig can play older me.
Okay.
I've got two. I think it would either be, especially with all the weird shit that he's done, I think it would be Daniel Radcliffe. Like that just fits the perfect vibe of like completely out of left field, like don't know what's coming.
For you?
Like for me.
Okay.
And then as a more like maybe serious note, like Robert Pattinson. For whatever reason, those are just like sticking in my head. I just think like Daniel Radcliffe's weirdness and like the way he does like some of his comedy stuff was very off the wall and very like, I'll just figure it out. Like that.
Yeah, that
would work.
That's a good one.
I feel like I might go with like Elijah Wood.
Yeah. I can see that.
Or like Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh,
I can see both of those.
Do that too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they could capture me.
Yeah, my version.
In all my complexities.
Yeah. My version of that question was, is there anyone in your life who you think knows you well enough to play you the way that Andy does?
That is a good question.
It's not Diane Wiest.
Yeah. No.
That's like being like, yeah, bring in Meryl Streep. She can do it. Like,
Should we make a movie where Steve plays all three of us?
Oh yeah, he would love that. He loved this movie so much. He would love to be involved in a high concept thing like that.
Yeah. It's been done before. The technology exists. We could cast him as all three of us.
Yeah, we could.
Because I'm not sure that I do. Maybe some of my oldest friends, if they all got together, but I'm not sure there's one person who knows me well enough who could portray me, who could walk in and just phone the audition.
Far too private of a person.
Yeah.
To have one person just stroll in and be like, "I've been watching you."
So then that brings me to the flip side of this question, which is, if you could stalk is a harsh word. If you could follow any current actor for 20 years, knowing that eventually you would know them so well that you could play them and then eventually just be them and just take over their life, who would you start following around?
Oh,
man or woman? Because Synecdoche makes it very clear that gender roles in these characters can be switched around. And
well, everybody thinks about death, and if that's all it's all about, then
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Man, that's I don't know. Adam, what's your question? I need to think about this a little bit more.
My question would just be, it would be centered around like, who would you pick your Hazel? Like, because it seems that she's just kind of like comes into his life and she's all into him at the beginning. Like, and then he eventually decides that he likes her, way, way, way down the line and all that stuff after she's got a family. Would you pick your own Hazel, or would you just like let that go?
I think that's a similar story to what we get in a lot of movies where like they're with the wrong person. And I think a lot of it is he doesn't warm up to Hazel until his narcissism starts to sort of soften.
Exactly.
Because I think it's pretty evident, especially the second time I watched it, how much he looks up to and admires and is like borderline envious of his wife's artistic ability.
Yes.
She's creating like unique art and original art, and he's kind of rehashing old stuff and putting his own take on it. So I think like his rejection of, I mean, outside of just the fact that they're married and it seems like it would be the wrong thing to do, but his kind of rejection of Hazel at the beginning, I think, is similar to a lot of movies. Like particularly you see these with like coming of age stories where like they're not into one person because they don't like the version of themselves that person likes.
Yeah.
And then once they start to like themselves a little bit more, they realize that like that's okay and they're worthy of it and they don't need to change. So I do like the way that relationship progresses as the movie goes along. I also just think like those two have really good chemistry, and the makeup as they age, they just look like such a comfortable older couple.
They did.
I think the performances there and the writing is really good. So, I mean, I think everybody wants to say yes, but that's kind of the point of Hazel type characters is that you're not really aware of them when they're there. And I mean, I think we can all probably look back on maybe not somebody we'd even be with now, but just when we were younger thinking like, oh, I kind of blew an opportunity there.
Oh, I botched that. Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
We're all men in our 30s. We've clearly missed some signals along the way. And I think we all know that.
Because we made it to 30? No, yeah.
Well, I just, depending on who you're with now, you're like somebody, you wake up from a fever dream in the middle of the night and you go, oh, she was into me. Oh, fuck. Like, what have I been doing? And then,
or even like you knew she was, but you rejected it because weird, stupid reasons.
You read it and you're like, I think so, but I don't want to like go for it and get rejected fully.
I feel like this movie, for the most part, avoids it usually. I feel like it avoids being preachy about any sort of right or wrong, or like, this is the way you should handle the fact that we're all going to die. No, this is the way you should handle it. Like, it's very much, it wallows in the fact that like there is no answer, and like,
which is you still haven't seen.
And so, but my counterpoint to that is with Hazel, I feel like thinking about it, it's one of the only parts of the movie where it kind of approaches the idea of maybe like, if he wasn't so narcissistic, if he could have just seen what was right in front of him, he could have been with someone and they could have vibed and he could have lived happily. And I feel like her storyline and their storyline is the only part where the movie kind of gets close to being like black and white, like should have done this. But in general, the movie I feel like tries to avoid those types of.
Well, and where does that come from? It comes from the fact that he spends the entire movie afraid of dying.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to compensate for that by becoming like more and more successful as an artist, which is what leads him to sort of reject Hazel at the beginning anyway. And if he was comfortable with his mortality and with just the level of artist that he was, he would have been with Hazel from like the 20th minute of the movie.
Yeah.
And so it does tie in very well. I really like that point. And I was just going to mention, Dylan, that you said like the point is that there really isn't a point, which is like exactly what adaptation is about.
Okay.
So I do think you need to watch that movie, and I do like it better than Synecdoche, New York, just because I do think there is a bit more of like a thread to it.
Yeah.
And kind of something to guide you all the way through outside of just like concept and existentialism.
Yeah.
But yeah, to go back to your, what was the question of yours that I was avoiding? Which famous person would I want to follow around?
You stalk for 20 years to take their life.
Oh God, I still don't know the answer to that.
I might say
what's funny too
at this point.
What was that?
I might say Wes Anderson at this point.
Ooh, that's a really good one.
He knows everyone. He gets all the coolest actors. He has his own style. And at this point, he's already so established that like.
I like picking a director like Linklater.
Ooh, yeah.
Or like Del Toro.
Mm-hmm.
Either of those two would be really cool.
Yeah.
So, on to observations and musings. So I had a few things I just wanted to kind of talk about here.
Yes.
And we've sort of touched on this a little bit already, where Caden's narcissism and how he just doesn't notice anything about other people. A couple examples of that, I think, would just be like his wife's cough.
Yep.
She's always coughing and he just like completely ignores them or doesn't even notice that they're there. And just the house fire. He doesn't acknowledge it ever. Or at least Hazel, when she's moving in, she's aware that it's there and that it's probably going to kill her one day, which it does.
I like it. I'm really worried about dying in this fire.
Exactly. Yeah. But to kind of juxtapose their characters a little bit and how Hazel's just always a little bit like mentally healthier. She identifies something that she thinks could kill her and she just goes into it anyway. And is comfortable with it. Whereas he's not for the entire movie, basically until the very end. Kind of Adam, to your point, until like the guy playing him dies as him. So I thought that was just sort of an interesting through line of how much he just doesn't notice people at all. And kind of it goes into a few other things for him where like one of you mentioned this too. He doesn't relate to the women in his life at all, but he kind of wants to be one by the end of the movie, which is maybe like, I don't know exactly the purpose of that, but just maybe him opening up his mind to being able to like see things from other people's point of view. And Kaufman takes it to like kind of an extreme. I think is probably the point of that. And then really interesting where we get that part where he's sick and he like can't produce like saliva like or cry. Twice after that we see him cry, and both times they're like during or before sex. But then when he goes to find his daughter and he sees that she never opened the gift that he sent her and he hasn't seen her for like a decade at least at this point, he needs like eye drops to manufacture tears. And it's like there's no audience there, so I kind of wondered how much of the crying is like performative
Interesting.
for him, or just I don't know. I thought that was just another interesting thing.
If he's just not connected like he thinks he is.
Yeah, I don't know how he can't cry when like nobody's watching. Essentially.
Yeah.
Which just kind of further folds into the narcissism, really.
Yeah, I was going to say, to add to your point, the difference between him and his wife at the beginning is she is very much, she is just seizing life and just going for it and not preoccupying herself with any existential dread. She has that cough at the beginning. She never says anything about it. And then we hear at the end of the movie, she died of lung cancer, but she was just too busy living her life to worry about that. And she also talks about with her art, she's like, I look, I see, and I paint. Like at one point she basically says that. And that's just how she does it. And meanwhile, he is so obsessed and
It's been 17 years and nobody's seen this play.
Yeah, everything he does, and every little ailment, he always thinks he's dying. He always thinks he's sick. This constant, like, death is right around the corner, and like, it almost like, why can't everyone else see it the way I'm seeing it? Like, but it's the people, they're blissfully just going right ahead, and you see characters, they're doing that on different levels. But his wife at the beginning, and maybe that's part of the reason why he really struggles to get over her and still wants her back, is because he's so envious of how she can just live her life and not think about this stuff ever, and just go and just,
Yeah, I like that point a lot. I think envy is often one of the sort of negative side effects or kind of personality traits of people who aren't handling depression super well.
Well, when
you just look at people who it seems to be going fine for, and you just kind of latch on and become infatuated and like jealous and envious of this fact that, like, why is it so easy for everybody else? So he needs to like draw them into his own despair, basically, in order to exist with everybody.
Be like, look, don't you get it? And they're like,
Hazel too. When he sees her with her new family, he kind of follows them into like that restaurant. He's like kind of watching them, and it tears him up. And that's when he tries to kill himself and tries to jump over the ledge, because it's like he's just watching them be so happy, and Hazel, and he's just realizing like the regret, boy, yeah, a lot of moments like that.
For sure.
It's
well, and a lot of parallels, I would feel like, to I'm going to put this in like a today context of like, I feel like you could put in like climate change for our generation is like, we're always thinking about death. And I feel like there's a lot of people who go like, well, how come it's easy for everybody else? And you see a lot of people in our age group or in our generation that are, struggling with mental health and depression and anxiety and X, Y, Z, name 100 things. And that kind of feels like very poignant to now, which is did not see that coming when I originally saw the movie.
I feel like maybe that's why the movie has, I mean, you said only made like $4.5 million when it came out in 2008. Maybe part of the reason why it has grown in popularity is because the direction our society has taken with social media and stuff, and how, mental health and mental health awareness and all that stuff really is on the rise. And that way, this movie does seem kind of ahead of its time. Like almost like he made it, and he's like, there's a lot of people out there that'll relate to this now, but 20 years from now, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to relate.
Yeah, like you don't get it, but
pandemic
will. Yeah.
I mean, Ari Aster just kind of half remade it this year
with Beau is Afraid. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did enjoy it more than Beau is Afraid.
Same.
There's an observation.
It made me dislike Beau is Afraid a little bit more, actually.
And then last observation of music I would have is his therapy sessions were comedic and also well done. Just the dismissiveness, the way that she would answer his question before he was even done asking it. Just the beginning, when his wife's like, I'm fantasizing about you dying and I can move on guilt-free. And his therapist is just like, does that make you feel awful? He's like, yes. She's like, good.
Now here's my book. Like,
that'll be $45
plus the cost of this session.
Adam, did you have anything else, or did you want to move into tidbits?
The only musing or observation I had, it's not amusing. The observation I had was I noticed early on that Sammy is in the background of a lot of scenes before he shows up and says, hey, I've been following you for 20 years. He's just in there. He's like, he's out of focus, so you can't really tell. But once you see him like once, you're like, he's there again, and he's there again, and he's there again. So,
it's like Where's Waldo?
I think he pops up a lot. And then when he asks him, when he does meet him, he goes, I've been following you for 20 years. He doesn't say your whole life. He says for 20 years. And sure enough, the script does have year dates in the script. And when he says that line, it's supposedly 2025, and the movie supposedly starts in 2005.
Jeez.
So when he says that to him, I've been following you for 20 years, he's been following him as long as we've been following him. So he's a representation of the audience in that way.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know.
I like that. I didn't catch that.
Of course.
The level of detail is insane.
Yeah. All right, Adam. Wow.
Tidbits.
With tidbits.
Well, so a couple we've mentioned because they weren't great tidbits, but they were kind of fun. Like, this is Charlie Kaufman's directorial debut. That's pretty wild that this strange movie became like the first thing he actually directed.
Not all tidbits are created equal.
That's true. Originally, Spike Jonze, you mentioned Spike Jonze, was set to direct this, but went to Where the Wild Things Are instead of doing Synecdoche. So that's why.
Okay, interesting.
Kaufman got this. Roger Ebert named this as the best movie of the 2000s, which is just baffling to me. But
like I said, though, I think I know another critic who's that I really like, and this is their favorite movie. So I think this is, as we've talked about it more, like if you connect with this. This is a really like a high floor or high floor, high ceiling movie or low floor, high ceiling movie.
It wouldn't shock me that Roger Ebert would connect with this. I mean, I feel like an older man who's into movies and highly esteemed. Like, I feel like doesn't shock me that he can relate.
That he loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. If you were like Taika Waititi loves this.
Not quite. Yeah. And then the last thing I have was that this is purposely structured like a dream, so you're not really sure what's real and what's not, because obviously he's just in his head the entire time, musing and kind of figuring out what everything is, and that it has double the amount of scenes as movies of its similar length of like 2 hours. So it has double the amount of stuff going on to get you to go, is this real? Is this a dream? Is this real? Is this a dream? Because everything is so choppy and disconnected, even though it's all connected. So I thought that was super cool, because that takes another level
that is interesting
detail to like throw together, write those out, and then create a scene, basically acts one scene, split it in two, and then write something in between it, So I thought that was kind of fun. But
yeah,
that's it for tidbits.
All right.
Nice. Another tidbit just before we move on. There's a theory that Philip Seymour Hoffman's character dies pretty early in this movie, and then a lot of this,
of course, is,
and he's in purgatory because there's a character that's like, you're not dead or alive, you exist in an in between, and none of this, right? But so within that theory, then there's other clues and hints that would say that Sammy is God. Because he's been watching him the whole time. He understands him. He's there for support. He's there on it, like right next to him. He walks the path with him, like stuff like that. So there's a lot of different ways to interpret this movie. Which
doesn't every movie have somebody online who thinks that every character is actually dead? There's a theory that Top Gun Maverick.
Oh yeah,
that's just the internet being movie. That's just the internet being the internet.
My Neighbor Totoro, they're dead the whole movie. Like, that's what I mean, though. Like, you can look online, almost every movie, somebody out there is like, they're actually just in purgatory and they've been dead the entire time.
It's an easy theory, easy conspiracy to throw out.
It is. All right. Those are some good tidbits. That means it's time, Adam, for the McCabe Coat of Excellence.
Presented to you by the McCabe Code of Excellence.
Yeah, by the McCabe Code of Excellence. Again, if this is your first time joining us, we're just really big fans of McCabe and Mrs. Miller here, particularly McCabe's coat, which you just saw. And at the end of each episode, we like to give out the McCabe Code of Excellence to anybody involved with the movie for any reason. That does not mean we have to give it out if we didn't like the movie or don't think that there's anybody worthy of the McCabe Code of Excellence, then we don't give it out. So I guess I'll start here, and I do think that Charlie Kaufman's screenplay is worthy of the McCabe Code of Excellence. There's just stuff going on here that nobody else could do, and for that alone, I think he earns the coat.
Yeah, I think we might have to rename it the McCabe Code of Existential Dread, but I think that it goes to Charlie Kaufman. I think that I know, right? Thank you. I just think, like, in a way, the way I've been thinking about it since I saw it is, it's like a writer kind of having a mental breakdown, like kind of really struggling to come to grips with his own mortality. And it felt like, throughout human history, I'm sure there's, been thousands and thousands of writers who have felt that, but finally one came along who was able to make a movie that's like completely about that. And the fact that he was able to direct it, no one could tell him, no, that's too weird, Charlie.
That's fair.
And so, like,
yeah.
I think it can go down in those it is kind of a work of art. And I feel like you could, put it in there in the same category of like novels, really good novels about like descents into madness, or just the tackle kind of these heavy concepts, accepting your own mortality and death and stuff. Like it's very bold and ambitious. And just, his screenplay, the fact that he at one point had to plan all of that out, everything we saw,
That's yes.
All 8 levels of
like,
character.
Kudos for real. And I liked Philip Seymour Hoffman's performance, but it wasn't my favorite Philip Seymour Hoffman performance. And also, it's so, he's just so sad and lonely so much of the movie. It's just hard to, I don't know.
But hard to fully latch on to.
He did a good job, but yeah, I kind of wanted to keep him at a distance. I didn't want to let it, You
didn't want to hang out with Caden.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No,
Adam,
if you look into Caden's eyes, he looks back into you. I think that's what it is.
Adam, is anybody worthy of the coat?
I mean, I would love to say that I think that Charlie Kaufman deserves it. I think it's just too weird. I think I have to watch it again before I can really give that out because I have to experience it again. Talking about it, reading some of the quotes as I was going through IMDb was like, oh yeah, that's really poignant. That's a really good point. I really enjoyed that. And I remember that scene and this is really good. And I really enjoyed rereading those and being like, there's a lot to get out of this movie. But I remember getting done with it and being like, what the absolute fuck? Like, not for me, right? Even though like a lot of that stuff is kind of, I can sit and vibe with that. So I'm not going to give out a code of excellence this time, but
that's a first.
Maybe on our other channel, if we do a roundup and I've seen it again,
I can exploring cinema. You wait, man. Wait until Charlie Kaufman hears that the first time no one got a coat was his movie from Adam.
right.
Dylan, I think you and I are just going to get a reputation for being way too lenient with these coats we're giving out.
I don't know. Pretty soon one will come along where there is not going to be a coat.
We just didn't vibe with one of these movies at all.
Yeah, and I guess last thing is I wonder if this movie, if maybe I will want to revisit it at a later point in my life, maybe when I'm at a different point and just a different headspace. Maybe 50-year-old Dylan will feel like rewatching this, and maybe
when you got a little more behind you, maybe.
Yeah. I just think right now it wasn't. I don't know, and even like maybe like if we had watched this in like the middle of winter. Watching it on a beautiful summer day with the boys and some beers was just not. Like,
it was
what Charlie intended.
We didn't set ourselves up well.
This is a winter movie for sure.
I will watch this and then immediately follow it with I'm thinking of endings things though. Like that feels like a.
I think I'm going to need to watch Ninja Turtles after this movie for the rest of my life if I ever watch this again.
Yes, that's what we'll say. Is after we watch this, we all watched the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and that was exactly what we needed.
Great palate cleanser.
That was we were in the desert, and that was just jumping into a big pool of fun and lightheartedness and it was
nostalgia and all that.
Yeah. All right. So wrap things up here with closing statements.
Yep.
Mine is just that I have a lot of respect for this movie, and it's really interesting to talk about, I think, but it's also something that I probably won't recommend to very many people.
Yeah, I think the most succinct way I can put it is I am very impressed, but I am not entertained.
Yeah, that was mine. I liked it. I did not enjoy it.
Okay. Yeah.
That makes sense.
I respect.
Mad respect, like a really nice, a really famous painting in a museum where it's like, all right, I respect it.
Sit and chew on it because
I would never put that in my house, but I respect it.
Yeah,
but this looks really hard to do.
This looks really hard to do.
Also, respect the artistry of putting it together.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was fun. As fun as it could be considering.
Yes.
That was fun. I wonder how many people walked out of the theater and said that.
Yeah, I don't know. Nobody.
Should we tell people what our next Exploring Cinema movie is?
Yeah, we're gonna watch RoboCop because we just completely change the vibe here.
Yes, hard left turn.
We're exploring all of cinema, not certain aspects.
And I've never seen it. I think Dylan's seen it once.
Well, yes, as a youth, but I don't remember.
As a youth.
As a young youth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you?
I have not seen it. No.
Great.
So, and I have the Criterion edition. So, yeah, I know. We're gonna crack that open.
Excellent.
Yeah,
I know, right? Vintage one. It's a Criterion edition from like 2004. Not
straight DVD.
Yep, a real DVD.
All right.
All right. Well, this was fun. I said it again. Damn it. Sorry, Charlie. This was introspective and philosophical and really Is I have a greater
Educational.
understanding of life itself.
Education. The episode was good.
Yeah.
Whose turn is it to put a quote on?
It's Adam's turn.
All right, Adam, take it away.
I know what to do with this play now. I have an idea, I think.